Demi Lovato and Keke Palmer. They recently revealed that when they were 15 years old, they dated men in their 20s and 30s.
The power imbalance between adults and teenagers is far greater than most people are willing to look at.
I feel like there's a little bit more here because it is about agency.
Adults are basically expected to exercise judgment and boundaries that minors cannot.
A lot of times the parents really sell them down the river because they want the money.
Ayisha Diaz, who said, in order to date me, you need to be making $50,000 per month.
This woman was speaking from a position of herself being a unit, a business, an LLC, if you will.
I wish that sister had friends like me because she's delusional.
This represents a niche dating market.
If you're getting $50,000 a month from an individual, that means you're getting $600,000 a year. Your expectations are ludicrous.
A young lady was bemoaning how she's living or about to move in with her boyfriend, and he makes 3 times more than her, but he wants to split the bills 50-50.
If he's saying let's go 50-50 financially, and he's not talking about how it can be fair and equitable elsewhere, you really need to consider if this is your option.
We've blurred these lines between marriage and dating and courtship and all this other stuff. Take little elements of marriage but aren't really married.
There's nothing wrong with that. They can still be boyfriend and girlfriend. What's the whole hype of moving in together?
Welcome to yet another episode of the BLC Pod. That's what happens when the members want to get their riffs on. Speaking of the rest of the members, though, we cannot start without saying what's up to our guy Delvin, who obviously is not with us on this episode. So Delvin, you are here with us in spirit, handling his business, crunching numbers somewhere. So we appreciate you. But with that being said, I got some of my people with me, and I got somebody else, MJ, you know what I mean? She about to put up buckets. We gonna get to her in a little bit. I mean, if you say MJ, I mean, everybody's gonna think about Michael Jordan. I mean, what do you want from me? But before we get into all of that, don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, and all of that good stuff. And of course, we got the merch, y'all. Thank God for B-roll so we can see the merch because nobody's wearing any. I mean, what do y'all want from me?
Wow.
And of course, we appreciate y'all out there for tapping in with us on this episode of the BLC Pod. So listen, man, we got to start with my girl, you know what I mean? S&M and them, you know what I mean? My sister them, my partner them. S&M Joseph's in the building.
I just get so excited. Like, I literally feel like I'm coming to the stage, right? Even though I'm sitting in a chair. But anyways, it's all good because at the end of the day, I need to sit in the chair because a sister is tired. I decided to go on a weightlifting journey, and it turns out I ain't built for it yet. I got to build up to it because a sister is sore and hurt. I went to a spa today, Black-owned spa, of course, and it was a great experience, and I'm still in pain. But it's all good because, you know, as baby steps, today was day 2, so I'll see how long I last. I have a tendency to not be consistent, but we're working on that. And that's the word, working on. Not consistency, working on.
For some reason, while you were talking, I was thinking it's like it's building up, it's building up, it's building up, and then one day you'll be solid.
I like it solid as a rock.
That's why we're okay. Let's just
okay. We went too far.
Let's just sing karaoke. My bad.
I can't even sing.
That's all I have. It's all
rock. But next up, though, this brother I've known for almost 30 of them. Some of y'all ain't even old enough as far as how long I've known this good brother right here. My guy. This brother was in my wedding. You heard me. We crossed. We pledged at the same time. Hailing from the SIP. You guessed it. My guy, Just Jay, is in the building.
Oh, good people. I'm glad to see y'all have rejoined us for another week. Glad to see the crew's here. Really happy that MJ has joined us. Of course, we're missing Delvin. You know, it seems like maybe the world, you know, I know things are out of whack, but I had a heartwarming story that I came across this week. I know y'all probably heard it. You know, Mr. Tendenism, right? He finally got out did his own thing, started out, he's serving up food for Ron Isley. Now I think he's going to be a personal chef. He's talking about getting some grills, and he's going to go in business for himself. But what I really liked was when people watched that, they watched the Destination Smokehouse thing, and they were like, man, we think Unc is getting exploited. Somebody had the foresight to trademark the name and save it for him. Now, what's funny is the owner trademarked a different name. He trademarked tenderism, which is like the white version of saying what we was trying to say. So isn't it funny? Like he tried to trademark it, but he didn't really like he tried to leave the N out. Now y'all can read between the lines and see whatever I said in that when you see what I said. But it's tenderism. When you leave the N out, you don't make no money. You learned something today, little sir, Mr. Smokehouse Destination. Don't try to leave the N out, sir. The N is where all the flavoring is. That's where all the soul is. Tenderism. Yeah, like that right there.
You know, it's funny, Jay. This entire time, I think he was trying to leave the N out.
He was.
You know what I mean? So it doesn't surprise me. And for those of the people in the back, the N being the nigga, he tried to leave the nigga out from the beginning. Sometimes you gotta connect it for people. For those of y'all in the back, you know what I'm saying? But anyways, I don't know how we pivot to this next person who we're super excited to have. You know what I'm saying? Not only is she here, right? But she's also the good sis from Dear Sis Podcast, right? She's about to put up some buckets. We're super excited to have her on the show. Give it up for MJ!
MJ! Yeah!
Hey guys, hey, thank you. It's your girl MJ from the Dear Sis Podcast. I'm excited to be here. This is pretty cool, really groovy. I can definitely dive in and we can definitely chop it up. Yes, it's your girl MJ from the Dear Sis Podcast. I'm happy to be here. Yes, thanks for having me thus far.
I mean, I feel like you still giving me like kind of, you little nervous, girl? You shy? I mean, I went to go check out your page. And you be telling jokes and stuff? I heard you be telling some jokes. Is that right? I mean, did I miss something?
No, I've been a comic for 5 years.
Yeah. Come on, man. I got to talk to you like after the show because I aspire. But really, how has that been? Can you tell us? I'm so jelly. Like,
you know what? It's funny you ask because I started with the podcast. So when I started podcasting, my audience, they just gravitated to me and was like, yo, you're funny as shit. And we need more of that. And one day I got the opportunity to sit on someone's stage and I just did my thing. And that was it. And I never looked back. So the podcasting pivot that, if that makes sense.
Oh,
so that's where I'm at. So I owe all to podcasting.
Wow. Listen, like I said, I'm going to talk to you afterwards because for some reason I want to get on that stage and tell some jokes too one day. I feel like I could.
You should. What's stopping you?
I mean, just time, you know what I mean? But we're going to talk about it.
We don't have that much time.
Huh?
We don't have that much time.
I know. I mean, but I have to prioritize, you know what I'm saying? Taking over the world, telling jokes, you know what I mean? It's like, you know, it's probably like 12th on my bucket list is what I'm saying. Right?
Wow.
But I'm going to holler at you, though. I'm going to try to fit it in between taking over the world, you know what I'm saying, and peace in the Middle East. Somewhere between those two.
I'm with you with the peace in the Middle East. I remember that as I was coming up as a kid. I'm still with you on that one. Yeah, peace in the Middle East, definitely.
But listen, man, now you already know. Listen, I am super excited as always to be with y'all. Y'all already know who it is, your boy Nick Nice. I was trying to decide like Nick Nice, maybe even Nick Nuance, you get what I'm saying? Or, you know, Big Nick Energy. I felt like all of them are applicable. So we'll see. You know what I mean? You know, if you want to comment in the comment section, if, you know, I should change the name, you know what I mean? But no, the thing I really wanted to talk about though is like, oh my God, this week, being old, getting older really fucking sucks. You know what I'm saying? Like, I got a herniated disc, y'all. The pain is shooting down my leg. I had to go to a doctor. You know what I'm saying? The best thing that came from it was a little white girl gave me a little shot on my ass. You know what I'm saying? And then she gave me an injection of medicine. But
you starting early.
I'm actually auditioning for MJ. How was that, MJ? Was that like a good little, like, you see how I did that right now? We'll talk about it later on. But no, dead ass though, my back is killing me. I am so happy to be here with y'all. Luckily, the drugs I took is sustaining me. So if I gotta like dip out real quick, it's the drugs. We're gonna blame it on the drugs. So, but let's talk, man. Let's talk our talk, y'all.
That is wild and crazy. I have no intention intentions of blaming anything on the drugs, but you know what? I take that back because some folks in Texas, they may have been drugged because Jasmine Crockett, she lost her race. So
Yes.
basically, Jasmine Crockett's loss has reignited criticism that her tone and public style may hurt her political appeal. Stephen A. Smith previously suggested that the perception and presentation matter as much as policy when it comes to electability. So some voters were arguing that, hey, that's not fair to judge this woman based on the fact that she's a Black woman who's outspoken and whatnot. But others argue that politics is all about persuasion and tone affects outcomes, whether it's fair or not. So here's my question to you, and I would really love to get Jay answer because he's out there in Texas. Did Jasmine Crockett's laws or lose because of her policies or because of how voters perceived her personality and tone? So you're boots on the ground. That's what I'm going to call you, boots on the ground. So
Okay. All right, I appreciate it. This is Justin Thompson reporting from Texas, where Jasmine Crockett has just lost last night. No, so really, as much as it might pain me to say this, no, it doesn't, because when somebody's right, they're right. Yes, I think to some extent, Stephen A. was right. At least that's what it looks like superficially, right? I think that statewide elections are about coalition math. They're about building coalitions and building consensus, right? And if you don't pull enough support outside of your base, you lose. So while we loved Jasmine Crockett around here, Black people was like, yeah, she think like us, she talk like us, she clap back, snap back like us. You know what I'm saying? Bleach, blonde, bad built, Bud Bunny, whatever. You know what I mean? She was clapping. So we liked it. Stephen was like, hey, you might want to slow that down. And people will blame her loss on her rhetoric or how she delivered it. But I think it's really more about the fact that she didn't really come across as somebody who was going to be, and I hate to say this, but she didn't come across as somebody who's going to be everybody's candidate. In other words, I think she was too Black for the Hispanic vote. I think she was too Black for that middle party white vote. So yes, I think Stephen A., I don't know if that's what he was trying to say. Maybe he was trying to say, dress it up, put your voice on, make it sound like it needs to sound so people will vote for you and believe in you and think that you're one of them. And she didn't do that. And because she didn't do that, she lost. Political science research has shown for decades that voter perception and cross-demographic appeal, right, being able to not just reach across the aisle, but reach across ethnic lines, right, that's how you get elected. That can matter as much as your policy does. Sometimes it's not even what your policy is, because Trump didn't really have a policy. Most of the stuff was a lot of platitudes, right? But it was how he said it. And then I'm going to say this, and I'm going to pass it, right? I enjoyed her because she felt like our answer to Trump, right? And that was refreshing because it felt like people weren't standing up to Trump. Felt like the Democrats weren't standing up, whatever. So I like that about her, right? But you have to remember what worked for Trump because he was speaking to, and y'all whatever, a largely uneducated populace that was out in the rural areas. You could lower it and dumb it down for them because that was their level, right? That he was still talking to his base, right? And he was pulling some people who had not been voting, who were out in the boondocks, and bringing them into the base. What Jasmine did not do, maybe if she had followed Stephen A. Smith's direction, she might have done was craft a message, craft a presentation that made everybody feel included and was inclusive and wasn't so ethnic. Politics isn't just about being right. It's about building a coalition large enough to win. That's
Okay, what the fuck was that? I'm sorry,
What you
MJ.
mean?
Like, did you just bust a 180 when we was talking about this shit
No.
from before? Weren't you on the Jasmine train before, bro?
I like
The
Jasmine.
first time around this conversation came up, were you not on the Jasmine train?
Listen,
And I'm
like
almost
Jasmine.
low. It's a yes
And
or
I
no
think
question,
that
fam.
Jasmine didn't
It's a
win.
yes
I
or no
said my
question,
point.
my brother. It's a
I
yes.
said my
Were you
point.
not on
Jasmine
the
didn't win
Jasmine
because
train
she didn't have
before?
support. I was
Huh?
yes. I'm for Jasmine. I am all the way for Jasmine.
I'm
I wish
saying
she
when
had
we
won.
talked about this the last time, because I feel
Yes.
like, right, we let you go first and that's cool, right?
Okay.
But like you weren't pro Stephen A. Smith, right?
Yeah, I
You
was gonna
weren't
call you out on
pro.
that.
I'm
Am I?
still not pro Stephen
Okay,
A.
hold on,
Smith.
hold on. I
Go
understand
ahead.
that. I'm trying to understand what your position was, because what
All
you
right.
did, if your position was, fuck Stephen A. because he don't know what he's talking about. Hell, I feel like in pre-pro, that's the type of time you was on. So now you're gonna come up on here and be like,
No,
Stephen A. is right. Maybe you did some more fucking studying or researching about the thing. But when we talked about the shit fucking many episodes ago, this does not seem like the type of time you was on. And when we talked about it in the pre-pro, you're gonna sit there and not only pay all
When we-
corners, right?
when we-
But you were on
when
the
we
other
talked
side.
about it
You kissed her
episodes
ass at
ago,
the end while saying that Stephen A. Smith was right on the
when we
front side.
talked about it episodes ago, my point was, Stephen, if you got something to say to this black lady, pull her aside and tell her. Don't tell her on TV for all of us. If it's for her, if he has some game to give her, that's good game. But you ain't got to give it to her in front of all of us. For what? Like, we gonna make
So
her
is that
do
what
it.
you're doing right now? Are you giving, so in retrospect, after the fact, right, you want to come out here and give good game, and my point back to you was, what the fuck are
I
you
don't have
talking
Jasmine's
about back
number.
then? Because the truth of the matter is, it's a fucking podcast. People are designed to talk. So the fact that he had an opinion about her was no reason to nullify it. That was the bullshit excuse that y'all motherfuckers used, because in truth, you ain't like the fact that he was saying something to a black woman. So now, oh my God, he was right. Come on, man. Like,
No,
what the fuck? Like, we had
no.
I wish to God I could pull up the fucking pre-pro. I couldn't.
I remember what I said. And as far as pre-pro goes, okay, my point stays the same. She lacked support from other demographics. That's what
That
jammed her up.
wasn't the conversation, sir. That wasn't the conversation, okay? And this is the shit that the reason why for me, right? If you want to get the full breakdown of what happened to Jasmine Crockett in her election, this ain't it. Sorry, Jay. They can go to CNN and the rest of them bullshit. Well, because of Latinos and all this. No, the question was framed specifically because this is a black fucking podcast in regards to whether or not Stephen A. was right? Because in the crux of him being right is a conversation about black women, how they're perceived, right? Because that's where all the black women got up in arms. The Joy Reeds, the fucking Carrie Champions, the Jamel Hills, right? Oh, Stephen A. is so quick to speak up about black women. So you know what I did? I went and did some research, right? Looked up the pre-pro, and you know exactly what Stephen A. said on the ABC interview that he had when he was confronted with what Jamel and them was saying. He was like, what the fuck are they talking about? You know why? Because the question he initially asked about Jasmine fucking Crockett was, hey, I think she's gonna probably run for a Senate. Right? And so does she think what she's doing is going to help her win the Senate in a red-ass state like Texas? That was his whole proposition, like verbatim, right? Before she even said that she was going to run. Right? And the shit that, sir, we heard you, okay? We heard you. Because the shit that gets me is that when black people, because for me, the entire time, the point for me was that we get so quick to be like, oh, you're anti-black, anti-woman. Versus he might have been making a credible point. You in particular was almost on some old, hey, just shut up and talk basketball versus talking politics. Like as if an observer of politics can't have a fucking opinion. And oh, by the way, be right about that opinion. I'm not saying he's right necessarily in terms of the challenges that black women face when it comes to these things, but we got to be honest. We're living in the real world. I even recognized back then that we go to jobs, that we have to show up a certain type of way in order to get ahead. Who the fuck doesn't know this in America? It's 2026. So with Stephen A., the uncle who's an Uncle Tom for some of y'all is saying, hey, sis, I get that it feels good. The shit that you were talking about, Jay. Oh, it feels good that she's standing up to him because she wants to play the same game Trump can play. Well, guess what? She can't. She can't because guess what? Her base, the people who love that type of time, only make up 13% of the fucking population, whereas Trump's base can make up more than that. It's simple math, right? So if we don't talk about why he was right? All that little tap dancing you're doing, sorry, sir, move to the side and let somebody really properly put in context how right Stephen A. was. And the reason why, have you not watched the last episode? Nick's not going to do it. You're not going to do it. I sat there and watched you just, Stephen A. Smith was right. I'm like, what? What did Jay say? Right? S&M. Hold on, sir. S&M. When you went to Jay, did you go to him with the expectation of some bolstering of the position? Is that a yes or no as question?
That is a yes. As a matter of fact, Jay, I was going to call you out too and be like, hey, yo, what happened? You know,
Listen,
you did a little flip-flop on us a little bit there.
I still say she didn't have the support. Now, so here's the question. Here's my point. My point is she wouldn't have won even if she had done it Stephen's way. And she wouldn't have won because Texas is very conservative. They don't want black or women, particularly black women, in power. So she was
That's what I was
already
expecting you to say, Don.
going uphill. Okay, and she needed to build
Ooh,
coalition.
thank you, Mr. Obvious. Thank you,
That's
Mr.
what I'm saying.
Obvious. This is Politics
saying-
101. Again, if you want the politically
Whatever.
astute breakdown, go to CNN to say that.
Whatever.
I'm sorry, MJ, go ahead.
I'm saying
I see-
nuance.
Wait,
But go
MJ
on, go
want
on.
to get in there. Go ahead, MJ. We saw
Go
you.
on.
Go ahead, MJ. We saw you trying to get in there.
I love Jasmine because we both have the same last name, but just without the A. I honestly believe she did not have enough time. That's it. She didn't have time. She didn't have time to build up the momentum. She didn't have time to really push her voice the way she wanted to. She didn't have time to really gear herself and present herself in such a way where she will move the room. She didn't have time. And sometimes when you're in places like Texas, which I honestly love Texas for whatever reason, it's just a great place to be, regardless if it's a red state or not. It's that she didn't have time, and I felt like it's as if she presented herself in such a way with time, she would have won because she's highly intelligent. I don't care about her being a woman. I don't care about her color. If she had the time and presented herself in such a way where she had the masses behind her, she would have won. Period.
Okay. So now that I've calmed down, because I mean, Jay triggered me just now. He did.
Thank you for calming down.
I mean, you were. Anyways, okay. So this is the thing, right? Not the Kamala excuse. She didn't have enough time. Like this is the thing.
Not so much the Kamala excuse now, because they love Jasmine.
I mean, I hear you, but you said she didn't have enough time, and I was just relating it to the fact that Kamala didn't have enough time either, technically, because how she was thrown into the fray. But it's not the same thing with Jasmine, right? Because
Correct.
Jasmine knew what time it was. Like literally, she knew how much time she had, right? I mean, here's the thing: if you're the Democrats, you're trying to get all the wins that you can get. Right now, and you think you have a layup or potential. Texas has been red. When's the last time a Democrat won a Senate seat for real? So sorry if anybody who has eyes could see that a black woman had an uphill battle, right? So if a person has the foresight and the understanding of the politics and the dynamics that we're currently in and the racial politics that's been polarized thanks to this president, right? And if you have aspirations, Barack Obama had aspirations once upon a time, and he had to curb his enthusiasm for the shit that we like as Negroes when he even had to throw Jeremiah Wright under the bus because he had bigger aspirations, right? Like is it ego or is it agenda, right? Because if somebody's
be a
giving you
mix of
good
both.
information, I'm sorry?
It can be a mix of both.
Right. But what I'm saying is that sometimes what pisses me off about this conversation is that we don't get to, not us particularly, but when Stephen A. mentioned it before, so many people were so quick. This is before she ran. This is before. So many people were focused on, so many women who claimed to support her were so focused on their egos about what he said, as opposed to how it had merit or if it had merit in their agenda to progress her career politically. Like, in layman's term, get the fuck out of y'all feelings. Feelings don't move nothing, y'all. Like, sometimes it's okay to get advice. It's not about, oh, black women. No, sometimes as a black man, you can know the challenges that your black sis is going to go through. You want to see her succeed. So you put a little chum out there. It's conversation. We should be able to have these conversations in public without it being necessarily, oh, she's dissing, he's coming for Jasmine Crockett. And Jasmine Crockett, who was in the position to run, who had all that money, whatever, had to sit there and listen to, okay, well, is he coming for me or is he giving me some decent advice that maybe I need to think about because I have a future and I want to be able to progress in a state like Texas? If she was somewhere else, maybe, but she knew she was in Texas. You knew she was in Texas. Stephen A. Smith knew she was in Texas. Joy Reid, astute political commentator, should have known the challenges. So it's not new that a black woman was going to have challenges in the state of Texas. And she did well enough to where the question does become, did she appeal to certain people? And not everybody's going to be dialed into certain things.
Okay, so
what are we talking about, man?
okay,
Like,
so I want to ask.
I mean, go ahead, man. Like,
so I want to
just
ask
because
some extra
go ahead.
stuff.
Go ahead, man.
So first, I just want to point out that there was a conspiracy theory that went around as well, right? Outside of the conversation pertaining to Stephen A., the conspiracy theory was that in Texas itself, originally the polls were supposed to close at a certain time. At the time the polls were supposed to close, Jasmine was actually up and leading all the polls. However, they extended it for 2 hours and it caused some confusion to other people, supposedly and allegedly. And then after extending it for 2 hours, they only end up having it for 1 hour. So there are people in Texas who actually thought that she lost because they purposely, i.e. the Democrat establishment and the establishment that be, set it up so that she would lose because they saw she was up and they decided that there was a possibility, because like you all pointed out, that it is a red state. The likelihood of her pulling a red state for Senate was very low. And so they needed this. The conspiracy is that perhaps they set it up to make sure she lost, kind of like a Bernie Sanders type of situation or whatnot, where they set him up for failure. So that was one of the conspiracies that was on the ground as well that they were reporting out of Texas. Now, is that a valid conspiracy? Is it a conspiracy if these things actually happen because they had no rhyme or reason on why they pushed it? So I'm just adding this conspiracy context because I'm going to go ahead and go on the Stephen A. Smith part. The Stephen A. Smith part, first of all, I'm one of those women who was like, he was talking respectability politics versus authenticity versus letting her be her authentic self, because her pedigree actually speaks for herself, right? She's a civil rights lawyer. She has her own law practice. She's been in Congress for X amount of years at the time before she ran to get in Congress now, right? She's always had some type of political aspirations and served literally was serving in the House. So with that being said, she also went toe to toe with Trump. And so I'm more likely to believe the conspiracy, coupled with the fact that they paired her as a strategy to say, hey, we really need Texas, so let's go with this white male Christian leaning guy and pair him with this extreme opposite so that now people will be forced to vote for this white male leaning guy. And when they say, okay, it doesn't look like he's actually going to win, okay, let's cause this extra confusion. And I'm not even in Texas, but I'm still more likely to believe it. In regards to Stephen A., I feel that at the time when he was speaking on it, he was talking more or less about her strategy. Like she should be this strategy. She needed to reconsider her strategy. But to be honest, her strategy of being who she was got her elected the first time. That's how she got elected into the House. Now, true enough, pulling the Senate would probably be harder for her, as we know. As a matter of fact, not even true enough. Probably. We knew it was going to be harder for her. But her strategy was still to stay authentic to herself because that's how she got elected the first time. Her popularity, even with the white folks, grew because she was authentic to herself throughout the time that she was fighting for the people. So she thought her authenticity would wear and win because that's what we're supposed to be in, the age of Aquarius, the age of awakenings and all that good stuff. So why not? So I personally say that Stephen A. may have had a point, but I still don't think he's right. And I'm going to also say this. And the main reason why I don't think he was right was because he literally reinforced every single stereotype out there. Now, most people say, well, how is it a stereotype if she's loud and aggressive, right? Well, why is she loud and aggressive? Why is it considered loud and aggressive when all the male politicians are exactly the same, loud and aggressive, but they don't come off that way. It's just they say it's passionate. So I still say F Stephen A. in that regards. We appreciate the advice, but he still was practicing respectability politics. I'm glad she decided to stay her authentic self, and she was in an uphill battle, and it was a strategy that the Democrats put in place because they still wanted the white male Christian to win in the first place.
Okay, so you didn't cut Jay off, but you wanted to cut me off when I think I was finally getting to the heart of actually some astute actual political breakdown, right? Which you won't get from CNN. That's number one. And you did it to talk about some bullshit about a conspiracy theory, which is funny
It's
to
not
me.
bullshit
Wow,
when it's reported.
did I cut you off?
My fault. Go ahead.
Okay, did I let you dribble? Okay,
I like that. I like how you say, Jay, you cut
I
him.
jumped in, and then I spoke to the bullshit that you spoke on,
It's a
and then you tried to cut me off while I was speaking. Let's be clear, because I'll let y'all speak the dribble that y'all be speaking, including S&M, who thought it was like, hey, let me cut their off. Cool, no problem. I'll let you speak, and you started off with some conspiracy theory. And then it was like you doubled down. It was an uphill battle, but then she got cheated out of it. Which one was it? Could she have won, or was it going to be a landslide? That sounds like bullshit. And then you, of course, want to believe the conspiracy theory because no way in hell. First of all, did you see an article about her? Like, my strategy is to be authentic. Or was she just shooting from the hip? Or was she getting caught up in playing the game with Trump because she thought that was going to be effective? If she thought that strategy was going to be effective, it was not. Right? So like this is like, what the fuck are we talking about? And then on top of that, if she lost by 5 points, if I'm not mistaken, it wasn't that big of a loss, right? And this is a primary, right? And yes, the Democrats have to consider who's going to have a chance to win. Again, obvious. Who
That's why
didn't know
two things
this?
can be true
Who
at
wasn't
once.
aware of this? So again, right, the person who is attempting to aspire for a position, only 50 of them exist. If she wanted it bad enough, and if a person wants her to win, giving her advice that could help her is worth giving, even if I buy what you're saying, S&M, even if I agree with you, right? But the extra mile that she and the Joy Reids and the rest of y'all went to paint a brother a certain type of way, when at bare minimum, we can say today that his point was credible enough to have been said. It was credible enough for not only for it to have been said, but it did not warrant the extra, oh, he's only coming at black women. Well, name another black woman in a red state who's positioned, who's popular enough to be positioned to run for Senate. So if he's not talking about anybody else in that position, then of course he's talking about Jasmine Crockett. But y'all ran him up the pole because what? He gave some astute political observation that all of y'all are coming to the conclusion now, oh, because they're never going to collect a black woman, oh, because sometimes black women are seen as being extra angry. Like, we know this. We knew this already.
Okay.
You know who else wasn't elected? In his primary, the black male who was the GOP. So it's the state itself, which once again goes to this.
I mean,
That's why I'm saying at the end of the day, we knew it was an uphill battle. Two things can be true.
It's always an uphill battle. Barack Obama was an uphill battle, but he won though. Right?
Like
and
I said,
sometimes
it was the
winning
same
means
primary.
you got to do certain things if it's about winning versus your ego. But I get it, because for y'all, it's always about y'all ego, right? You know what I'm saying?
I disagree. Disagree
I
with
disagree.
you. 100% disagree with you. You're
We can't never
minimizing
take no
exactly what we're
accountability,
saying.
right?
No, now
Even
you're
after the loss,
minimizing.
it's too much to say, you know what? What you said, he had a point, is what you said. He had a point. You're right.
Because he did have a point. But like I said, two things can be true at the same time.
Were you killing him for his point, S&M, before? Were you sounding like the
Before I
rest
was
of the
talking
black
about-
women
yeah,
out there
I'm
with the
saying
pitchforks
that
because he had a point that was politically astute?
Before, when
Do you
we
want to
last talked
incriminate
about
any of
this.
that now? Be like, yo, you know what? To be honest and fair, because I'm a woman that sees things differently with more information, and upon looking at it, maybe I was a bit harsh, and I can see how sometimes we get caught up in our feelings because we hear some things a certain type of way. You want to do that or no? We can move on.
Nah, we're going to go with a nah because I still stand on my point. And like I said, he had a point then. And even in that first time, I said, I understand his point. But this was the appearance to some women. That's how I presented it the last time we
Not you,
talked
though.
about this subject.
That wasn't
So,
appearance to
yeah.
you, though.
So,
You wasn't on that chain.
I
You wasn't on
stand
that
on my
train.
point. Hell yeah, I'm standing on this damn point. 10 toes. Because at the end of the day, it was an uphill battle, period. If she was black, it was an uphill battle, period, for
Okay.
any black person in Texas. And her being a black woman made it even worse. So, yes, I'm going to stand on this hill.
Okay, well, listen, y'all, and this is why so many brothers out there are concerned about the marriages, getting into marriage in the first place. Right?
Oh, wow.
I'm sorry, it was
That's
a
a
tough
savage
pivot.
transition.
And not only is
Savage
that a
segue.
savage transition, it's more of, this must be Manise talking over here. The Manise, we need a shirt that says Manise.
It is.
Manise equals extreme
Manise.
gaslighting.
Oh, I mean, listen. Hey, okay, fine. I'm a transition and pivot, right? Because this next story really talks about expectations that people should have before marriage, right? In one viral clip that we saw, a young lady was bemoaning how she's living or about to move in with her boyfriend, and he makes 3 times more than her, but he wants to split the bills 50-50. Now, mind you, these two people aren't married yet, right? And this is the situation. And now she's having some concerns about, well, damn, why would you do that? Is that even fair? Right? And so conversely, we also saw, or in addition to that, we saw a clip from a pastor. Actually, it was 2 pastors, a male and a female pastor, who was saying, hey, man, you ain't got to pay her bills. You ain't got to step in for her family situation. I mean, you're just boyfriend, just girlfriend. You don't owe her anything. So it really begs the question about the expectations that people should have marriage, especially even like in living together situations. So what are your thoughts? Was the sister right? Was it unfair? She's making 60, he's making 180. She's a teacher. They're moving in together. He say, nah, we're going to split it 50-50. Right? Is she right? It's unfair. Should she have some concerns about moving forward? What are your thoughts about people's expectations or entitlements, some may say, prior to saying, I do?
That's actually pretty interesting.
Ooh.
Oh, go ahead, MJ.
With that situation, she should live on her own. Just live on your own. Have your own place. There's nothing wrong with that. They can still be boyfriend and girlfriend. You have your 160, I'll keep my 60 here, and I could just live on my own. What's the whole hype of moving in together? Why is that so? Why does that matter? Why do we even have to do that if you're complaining about 50-50? What does that look like? And it depends on the makeup. How were they raised? Who are these people? Like, it's a lot that come with that.
Economically speaking, it looks like, if I'm thinking about it, he has a lifestyle. He is living a
Okay.
lifestyle that is 1 or 2, maybe 3 times higher than hers, okay, just based on income, right, and access to amenities. Now, if she wants to be a part of that lifestyle but they're not yet ready to commit to each other, okay, then it's going to cost her to get into that lifestyle. When I first heard this, I had forgotten that the people weren't married. Like, it's one thing when you're married and your income is different, right? But when you're not married, look, you're just somebody's come up. You're somebody's sponsor if you bring them in and you pay all their bills. Like, what is that? She got let's say she makes 40,000 and he makes 120. She can afford what she can afford at 40. Okay? She's still doing better living with him, even if if it's proportional, but not if it's 50-50. Because if it's 50-50, she can't afford it because he would have to lower his lifestyle to make it affordable for her. And why would he do that? Right? And why would she want that? Because honestly, you know how people are nowadays. She's probably attracted to him because of his lifestyle. So no, I think the pastors are right. There's this saying going around the internet. It says a wife is a wife before a wife is a wife. And I'm told that men know what that means and women don't. I see the women shaking their head, looking blank. So maybe. So here's the thing. It's about character, right? So, and we've blurred these lines between marriage and dating and courtship and all this other stuff. We're moving in now. We're doing lifestyle contracts. We're doing all sorts of things that take little elements of marriage but aren't really marriage. And
Wow.
if you keep doing that, what's left? So no, I think something should wait for marriage, like going 50-50, like commingling funds. So if she can't afford to get up to his level, then like MJ said, they just stay separate. Because otherwise, going
Yeah.
50-50 means he got to come down to hers.
S&M, how you feel about that?
I was like, you know what? So first, I want to start off being all neutral and whatnot, just for some, so anyway, so with that being said, yes, dating and marriage is different, right? The expectations 100% should be different because there should be some type of benefit to being married, right? So that's 100%. But if you're saying a wife is a wife before a wife is a wife, then a husband should be a husband before a husband is a husband then. And
Correct.
I will also go ahead and add this piece too. I understand about perception, and so I understand where she's coming from because it's about equitable, right? So even though one partner may be paying more financially than the other, there's other ways that the person who makes less can be showing up in the relationship that can be equitable, right? And so when
Absolutely.
we talk about 50-50, I think the person should define what that 50-50 look like. In this particular case, her concern is the fact that he's defining 50-50 as straight up and down the middle financially. I think that's bullshit because if that's the case, I pray to God that she's saving her womb for marriage too then, because that when someone get pregnant, that lowers their first, it lowers their ability to go to work. They actually have to take time off. So they have, especially if she has an hourly wage type job or whatever job that she may have, she actually loses out on opportunities because she's pregnant or she has a child. Then there's a career pause because she's pregnant or she has a child. So that's not going 50-50. Is he going 50-50 on that pregnancy? Besides adding that sperm, is he going 50-50 in the child care? I bet you any money he wants a traditional role while maintaining 50-50? Is he going to go 50-50 on the chores in the house and that child care when they have that baby? So please, women, when you hear this type of stuff, make sure you evaluate it to the best of your ability and recognize that there will be some trade-offs in this whole conversation. Because if he's saying let's go 50-50 financially, but he's not talking about 50-50 elsewhere, and he's not talking about how it can be fair and equitable elsewhere, then we need to you really need to consider if this is your option. Now, some folks will say, oh, she'll still be coming out better because she have less bills. So you'd rather pay 100% of your own bills versus 50% of bills with somebody else. But no, that's actually not true, because that unpaid labor that people don't talk about. So unless he's willing to do the unpaid labor that most women naturally, for some reason, fall into the bag of doing, and that's that same thing when people talk cooking, cleaning, and all that good stuff. Now, if he's cooking and cleaning, cool, girl, go 50-50, because that's an upgrade for you, because
Because
you was
he's
paying
not.
100%. You was paying 100%. And if he's doing all the stuff to make everything
He's
50-50
slinging
in the
D.
household, then go ahead and go 50-50. That's an upgrade. But if he's yelling traditional, and then he's defining traditional as far as cooking, cleaning, taking care of the kids and all that good stuff, sister, hold on, please. I even stuttered because hold on. That means take a minute and think about it, because you are
Definitely.
setting yourself up for failure, especially if you're not married.
Definitely. Totally. And who's moving in with who?
I
Who's
mean,
She moving
moving
in
in
ma'am,
with
with
him.
who?
She
ma'am,
moving in
let's
with
She's
be
him.
moving in with him.
And the wife is a wife thing is about character. It's funny that when you all say the husband is a husband, it's about currency. How are the two
That's
things the
not true.
same?
That's not always
That's
true.
not what I said. Husband is a
That's not
husband. When we
always
talk
true.
about currency, I'm talking about all things to include the qualities of the husband, because a husband should be caring, kind, and considerate. He should be cherishing his wife. So when we talk
Inconsistent.
about that, you just assumed that when I said the husband is a husband, we're also talking about character. It's not just talking about the finances. It's just a piece of the conversation, because
Let's
men still traditionally makes more than women.
let's
So
flip
that
it a
is
little.
definitely a
That's not true,
consideration.
because women, we are definitely on the come up. Men are no longer making that big top dollar. Women are definitely making that big top dollar. So let's change the roles a little bit. So let's say I was the breadwinner and my husband was our boyfriend was making $60,000, and here I am making 260,000. What's the problem there, fellas?
That's how y'all move anyway. Thank you for saying that, love. Thank you. Because number one, y'all wouldn't consider it. That's number one. And number two,
That's not
even in
true.
relationships, ma'am, I heard y'all all speak, right? So I just want to talk a little bit, right? I'm not saying it's true for everybody, right? But I remember there was a clip that went viral on tonight's conversation where the sister got on stage or, was reading a question. She said her man paid all the bills, took care of the kids, but she wanted him to be more ambitious. And then it turned out she made more money than him. It's like, wait a minute, you make more money than him, but he's paying all the bills and taking care. What I'm saying is, right, that's the level of consideration or entitlement that some women have,
Mm.
right? Let's get to the heart of what this is really about, right? Because yes, y'all are dating. She's paying her bills over there. You're paying her bills over there. Whose idea you think, if this is a true thing, whose idea it was that we're going to move together?
Probably
You
hers.
think if it was his idea that the way it's being propositioned would be propositioned right now? No, absolutely not. Right? Because to what y'all are saying, if he's a good guy, kind of considerate, that kind of considerate means I have to cover you now. Why? Why would I do that? Right? Unless maybe I'm trying to see what you're about, trying to build or whatever. Right? It sounds to me it's possible that, hey, this is the situation. It reminds me of that basketball player who was, I think the shorty wanted to like get a spot or whatever. He's like, yeah, I'll get a spot with you. I'll chip in. I'm going to chip in half. Right? Doesn't mean I'm going to live there, but yo, I got you. You find a spot that you can afford and I'll pay half of it. Right? And I get that for some of y'all, there's no value in the fact that half of your bills at the very least will be paid. I get it. You could just do that. Yeah, you're right. That's cool. That's your right. But at the same time, that's his right. That's his money. He's not covering you. He didn't put a ring on your finger yet. This is a trial run. It's a trial run. If you're making 60, you date a nigga 180 and you think it's going to be a cakewalk, good luck. Right? Or maybe you should take Jay and MJ's advice. Yes, live by yourself. But I don't think that's what this is. I think what typically happens in relationships is that the woman is spending time over at the guy's house. She likes it over there. It's nicer over there. She is comfortable over there. She got clothes over there, toothbrush over there. She want to be there more often. And correct me if I'm wrong, maybe I was just one of the few guys who wanted to marry my wife, so that was more of a me thing. But I feel like a lot of times it's y'all that be hinting, poking, prodding about, hey, when we gonna make this next step? When we gonna make this next move? So it's completely okay for him if he's open to living with you. Now we're making all this other shit up, like he got to be living in this wonderful place. What if he's just good at saving money? What if he's a responsible brother who's actually living at a person's means who makes $60,000 a year? What if that's possible? Right? And so if he is, in fact, living that way, Jay, to your point, right? Boom, knock that off because he's willing to cut the bills down. In fact, because he's good with money, now he realizes I can elevate my life a little bit because guess what? She's chipping in too. So if I was living at 60, she's living at 60, together we both could live at 90 and still maybe save a little bit. See how this thing goes because who's going to be responsible for the house? She's already low-key probably priming herself, right? Because why not? He makes the money. He's a breadwinner. He's provisional and all that other kind of stuff, right? He's the husband, right? But so part of being a husband is being responsible financially, hedging your bets a little bit, and making sure that you're discerning properly, right? So yes, if you want to move forward, this is the situation. You want it or no, right? You want to walk away or no. That's called leverage. Right? Because if he's showing up in all the other ways, if she's not showing up in the other ways, S&M, then why is she with him? Because if he's not, then the only reason she'd be with him is money. So clearly, if she's considering moving in with him, right, and maybe marrying him, he checks those boxes. But
Not
we got to
necessarily.
uncheck those boxes, right? Because we want to make the point,
God.
right? Right? But I could recheck those boxes and say that clearly he meets it because he's him. She ain't going nowhere if it was a real story because she knows leverage. The next guy she date may not be so well off, right? Or as great of a guy, right? So what are we talking about, man? He has every right. And I get it. Y'all wanted to be fair. Fair is where, I'm not even going to say that, right? It's not fair, right? Because it's not supposed to be. This ain't about fairness. He ain't marrying you, girl. You're just a girlfriend. And them pastors were 100% correct. Now, I'll say this in land. The caveat for me, though, is that doesn't disqualify if a man chooses to do these things. I'm not going to call him a simp or a trick or none of those things. People are able to marshal their resources as they please, right? And I think it's dope if a man loves a woman and wants to move her in. If that's his prerogative, I'm not going to knock him either. But what I don't like sometimes is that we got to create villains out of people making smart choices because until he is ready to get on bended knee, he has not bought in yet. He is not fully invested. And if he's willing to invest a little bit, cool. But just like the last story, I realized y'all don't mind losing, right? As long as you got your pride, right? Y'all don't mind not only losing in relationships, but low-key losing at elections as long as you can do it your way, right? Which is perfect because we got more stories to talk about. But I'm sorry
We do.
if that just
Yeah, you
seems
know
to kind of
what?
flow.
That's actually
That-
crazy because
Hey,
while
girl,
you
good luck.
No, that's crazy because we also incidentally saw another clip where a guy was basically stating that he would support his woman as his girlfriend because he has some expectations of her. So I think there's still two sides of the story in regards to that support argument. And so it's pretty interesting because this one guy's like, yes, I'll support. And then we have Ayisha Diaz who said, in order to support me, in order to date me, you need to be a man need to provide $50,000 per month to be with her. And this really ignited a debate over whether modern dating has become transactional. So some say that she was actually just being transparent and honest in regards to her luxurious dating style. Others argue like this is reflecting a culture where relationships are increasingly being treated like financial management situations rather than partnerships, which kind of ties back to the last story and whatnot. And so with that being said, is she being honest about her lifestyle expectations, or does this represent everything that's wrong with the dating culture?
Can two things be true at the same time? I think she is being honest about her expectations. I also think her expectations are ludicrous. I think that $5,000 a month isn't just high as a standard. It is statistically in the fringes. It's an
50,000.
outlier. It's rare. Right. It's crazy. Here's the thing. If you're getting $50,000 a month from an individual, that means you're getting $600,000 a year. That would put you in like the top 1%. But that means that person has to have top percent money to bring you to the top percent. So I guess she's saying she got a top percent box. She got a 1% box. That's what she's saying. She got a 1 out of 100 box, and because I don't know what else she was bringing. And what was really weird was you asked me if it's making relationships more transactional. I think it's just showing where we've gotten with the transaction, and it's just full blown now. It doesn't really make any sense. She was going on to say, well, I need spending money, and if he wants me to sit still, I need money to cover the repairs on my investment properties. Ma'am, if you got investment properties, that's your money right there. If your investment properties aren't paying for the upkeep, you're bad at business. Okay, you don't need a sponsor. You need a support group. You need a counselor or something. So my point is, apparently she thinks she is luxurious, and she says she feels like she's that rare. She is that one in a million, and maybe she is, but she's still single. So, and that's the thing I love about a free market, right? As an economics major, you can set a price for anything at whatever you want to set it. Okay. It does not have that value until someone comes and purchases it, till someone takes it off the shelf. Right now, she is setting her price, but I don't think it's connecting with the value. So when someone sets that as a requirement, they're essentially saying they want somebody to level them up to the very, very top based on the fact of what? That is ridiculous. That is like the most expensive prostitute I've ever heard of. And that's crazy. Really, really crazy. There's nothing wrong with having high standards, but the higher your standard, the smaller your pool. And she has put herself in a very, 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 very small group of people. And the fact that she's still single shows you how small that group is.
Wow. And these ladies gonna step up and defend womanhood? He just called her a prostitute, right? Like, y'all cool with that, or should I go? I mean, what we doing?
I mean, prostitution definitely still exists. So it's not unheard of. And maybe she feel like she's a unicorn, like myself. Not that I want $50,000. That's ludicrous.
That's ludicrous.
That's ludicrous. It is. Because you start to shrink and shrink and shrink and shrink and shrink. And then you disappear. And you don't want to disappear. You want to stay relevant. So you can brag and be like, hey, I got the guy who gave me the $50,000 a month. But that's not happening, unfortunately. I don't know what kind of coochie power she has. I'm Haitian, so I can do all the voodoo magic I want to make my poom poom rise to the mountain if I like, because my family, we practice that. However, I'm not in that position to do that because I don't want to have someone's son belittle himself where I'm making him feel small and I'm a rise for the occasion when it's really supposed to be like this. That's my take on it. I wish that sister had friends like me, because she need to sit next to somebody like me.
Would you have slapped the common sense into her?
Absolutely.
But hold on,
I would have allowed her my bed and while I sleep on the couch.
Well, hold on, MJ. I thought you were saying she was similar. Are you saying the amount is the problem, or just the exchange itself? I'm trying to see where your problem lie here with her.
She is, what's the word I'm looking for? And I don't want to say diabolical because she's delusional.
Okay. That's what we want to use. Okay. Use the word. I'm gonna say you and Jay are delusional in this moment right now. Right? Because y'all seem to be looking at it from your lens. There's a reason why she was on the EYL podcast to begin with. People who know she is not delusional. Like, she had a podcast, and I don't know if Jay looked her up or whatever in terms of her relationship status, but I would likely to say she has enough suitors to where her number was not ridiculous. It was not.
Okay.
It's ridiculous.
I don't know
This
her.
reminds me when we were talking about, I think it was like, what's the brother who played ball from Miami that got
Anthony.
traded to, huh?
Was it Was it Edwards?
No, the brother who got traded to Miami, I forgot his name, right? But anyways, he had like the whole child support, and Shorty was asking for a certain amount. And my thing was like, these people are rich; they play different. So I get when we hear 50,000. In fact, in her follow-up video that S7E3 included in the rundown as a link, right? She said that like, I get it. For some of y'all, that number might be 2,000, might be 5,000, right? But for her and the nighttime girls who worked through New York, there's a whole like, I think what was the dark-skinned sister who was dating the other ball player. She's on all those like ads. Like these women out here are getting money. They get into it, right? What she said specifically was, her formula was that I need you, if you want to sit me down, to give me twice what my bills are. That was her formula. So let's think through that for a regular woman, right? If you're a regular woman making $60,000 a year and a man comes along, he says, you know what? I want you to sit down. I want you to not work anymore. I'm going to retire you. And you said, okay, cool. Well, to do that, this is what I would need. Now, if you're a smart woman who's really good with her money, you're not going to be out there necessarily spending all your $60,000 on bills. Are you? Right? Because some of you are, right? Cool. So boom, let's say, for example, you're only spending $30,000 and he comes along and you say, hey, you want me to sit down? I'm going to need you to give me 60 because my bills are 30. Technically, I might make 60, but if you want me to sit down, because aside from my bills, I got to put money away for savings. Those investment properties, Jay, that you were talking about, you still have to have funds in them because sometimes tenants don't stay, right? You got to have emergency funds. You got to get stuff repaired and shit like that. This woman was speaking from a position of herself being a unit, a business, an LLC, if you will. She's out here getting it. And guess what? A lot of men through ego who have money will want her to sit down, because they want to have that level of access and control over her. And for them, it is nothing to spend the 50K. She's not talking to me. She's not talking to you. She's not talking to us. She's talking to a particular group of people, right? So when we hear these numbers, we already cast certain aspersions and whatnot. But come on, man. Like, we act like there aren't regular women out here who would have a certain standard before they would retire from working, right? There's a reason why alimony was a thing, because when women stopped working, they were not available to like the workforce. And therefore, if the divorce were to occur, it made sense for them to get something out of the relationship, because guess what? They decided to stop working and have the family, right? Does that sound familiar? Is that prostitution to you, sir? Right? So I get it, because this woman is heavily attractive.
That's a family.
We lose all... I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm just making, I'm making a correlation, right? I'm making a point that you can have a situation where a woman has to be conscious of the fact that a man can leave her, because she said that in the video, right? She talked about how she wanted to have her bills set up a certain type of way. Her caveat was that if he wants me to sit down, it was not to be in a relationship with me. This is why the BLC went from Black Lives Chatter to better listen closely, because some of y'all don't listen close enough. And I'm not talking about you, Jay, in specific. I'm talking about all the men who was like, oh my God, this is damn near prostitution. If you heard what she said, this is not what prostitution is. I get it because of the numbers and all that. And maybe there's a version of it. Maybe there's women out there who think they can move like her, but look at yourself, sis. Can you? You talked about Jay, her being the top 1% or whatever. Well, guess what, my guy? She is. I hate to break it to you. I don't know what magazine or what trading document you're looking at, but she's commanding that, bro. Because what other reason would she be on EYL in the first fucking place? What else do you know her for, sir? So you don't think she's a nobody? She ain't getting in no way? So for her to have a standard, I'm not mad at that. Now, if a nigga comes along, am I arguing for him to meet that standard? Absolutely not. But it depends on the nigga. If you're looking for marriage, maybe not. But if you're playing in that ballpark, guess what? Most women that you're going to meet are going to be on that type of time in some variation. And the good ones do a good enough job of finessing you enough to not even think it existed in the first place. Go ahead, SNL.
Okay,
I'm shocked. Go
there
ahead,
being a
Jay.
lot of numbers of them doesn't mean it's not prostitution. It being normalized doesn't mean it's not trading money for intimacy and body access.
She did not
or
say
whatever.
that. She
And
did not say
wait,
that.
she said, if you want me to sit down, right?
Correct.
Now, let's go back to what she
Retire.
said specifically.
Correct.
What
What does sit down mean, sir?
Retire.
What does sit down
What
mean
does
to
it
you,
mean,
sir?
retire?
That's what it means to most people who hear it.
She's not at work. Listen, but maybe it means stop being in videos. Yes, why she's on EYL? Because she's a video vixen. Not
Okay.
because she's whatever.
That's work. That's work. So a man comes along and he wants her to not work.
He wants her not to work.
What other
Yes.
definition
She's gonna
of
call
sit are you saying? On his penis? because then I get your prostitution point. But if she's talking about retirement, you sound crazy right now, bro.
Okay.
What thing did she say made this prostitution to you, sir?
The fact that the relationship has a dollar amount to it turns her into an escort. Facts.
The relationship, you would need to hear. Go ahead, S&M. You were not listening.
Yeah, so
you were not
actually,
listening closely. Go ahead, S&M.
so that's why I'm actually surprised that Nick and I are on the same side on this one, because what I was going to say was, first of all, this represent a niche dating market. Niche being the key word, because she's only speaking to a certain caliber of men who can't afford her. And there are men out there who can't afford this and afford her. And that's regardless if they want her to sit down or not, as far as if she want to maintain working or whatever she wants to do. And so I'm not quite sure why it came as a shock for so many people because of her calculation and because she's talking about retiring. So let's bring it down to regular people, because we understand that when we see social media examples, the first thing we do is put it in through our lens. We view it as through regular people lenses, right? And that's when the numbers sound extraordinary, like, oh my God, and that's why I joke when I say you're going to slap some common sense in her, because we're speaking from our perspective, our lens and so forth. And to us, that may seem like too high of a number, too high of an ask, but it's not for her. Like, she actually has a list of baby daddies who are probably already providing that somewhat a little bit in child support. And so with that being said, I just found this very interesting, the amount of disdain that a lot of people express towards this woman who is saying, hey, basically, if you want me to retire, this is what I would need. Now, let's take this down to the regular people, right? Because she did, and that's why I included the follow-up of the regular video, or the video where she said, hey, that may not be you because you may not have this, but what is your amount? Everybody has an amount that if they want their wife, girlfriend, or whoever they're with to not work, they have to have an amount. If a woman doesn't necessarily think through that amount, then it leaves it up to that guy to determine that amount. So, for example, when we talk about the stay-at-home moms and so forth, and if they had a career, there was a cost associated with them quitting their career so that they can maintain their lifestyle that they were accustomed to while meeting all those requirements of being that stay-at-home or a trophy wife or whatever. That's why it's called a trophy wife, because you're paying for the trophy, That's why it's a trophy girlfriend. And it's actually interesting because we act like men don't pursue a relationship for status. So based on who she is and based on how she look, that's a status symbol for men. So some men will say, oh, she meet this. If I got her on my arm, this is going to upgrade me in certain people's eyes, because they're also posturing for other men. So now she went on record saying $50K, that's what it costs to retire me. And if I can say as a man, look, I did that. That was me. Then that increases their status as well. So I understand why some folks thought this was really unrealistic, but I think we'll be pretending if we didn't act like this has already existed in some shape, way, or form. All she did was put her amount on it. All she did was say how much it would cost her, and that's why people was equating it to prostitution or to transactional, because let's be honest, at this point, all relationships are transactional if we want to break it down to the nitty-gritty of it. You know what I'm saying? And so it's just interesting to me that when someone set a high standard that's outside of your standard, and I mean those people out there who thought this was outside of their standard, then it becomes a gas moment, let me clutch my pearls and so forth. But she wasn't speaking to you. She was speaking to the men that she fucks with. And that's why I support it. I'm like, yo, do you? Because if I can say this, I would never say this. But if I can say this, I would have said it too, right? Matter of fact, now I'm looking like maybe I need to consider my number. Okay, so husband, don't pay attention to that.
I love how you broke that down, though. That's good. That's good.
Regardless as to which socioeconomic stratus she is speaking to or appealing to, if I am paying this woman for her time and attention, how is that not escorting?
Okay,
when the prices are negotiated up front.
Is that a rhetorical question, or you want me to answer that, sir?
Go ahead.
Answer. Because she's having a conversation.
When we discuss the prices up front for your time, how is that not escorting?
Because the thing is, bro, because here's the thing, bro. Like, you're trying to force yourself to conjure this narrative to work for you, right? If she's on a podcast answering some questions which she was reticent to ask initially and she answers it, right? Cool. Now she's having the conversation. In truth, is she having the same conversation exactly with her man the same way? Absolutely not. Now, he may propose like, hey, girl, you know what I'm saying? I want to take, I want you to work. Don't worry. I want you to spend more time with me and the kid. Like it's usually, I'll be willing to bet that a lot of times it's the man who's making this proposition to her. And she's like, oh, I don't know, baby, because, I got bills and stuff like that. So what I'm saying is, in the context of a relationship, money is going to come up depending on how deep you get into the relationship, how much commitment you want for the person, even all the way up to marriage. I am not saying I advocate people doling out a bunch of money. Do what you do, because it's not about my advocation. Like, I just understand why people do things. So if a man with means want to spend money on her, it is not, you keep on pigeonholing it to make it seem like, hey, you give me $100, I show up to your house. You give me $300, I'm going to have sex with you. That's not what she's doing, my guy. That's not the ballpark that she is playing in, my friend. Okay. Right? Even with escorts that you talk about, some of them get to the levels that it's not even a conversation, right? Maybe like, you know what I mean? Because there's different levels to that too. So for you to even position it in a certain type where I get it, but if you listen to what she said, just her conversation in real time and taking away all the other stuff, because she also said that's not what's required to be in a relationship with her. She gave space for the idea that if a man was not going to be able to retire her, she would still work. They could still be in a relationship. Right? And then secondly, on top of that, are you telling me that most women who are dealing with the man with some level of extra means or whatever would not expect him to show some love if they're going to be in a serious relationship? If we just fucking, cool. But if you're going to claim it's serious, there's no expectation for him to be like a little generous with what he's working with or no. That got to be prostitution?
Is different from a bill. Generosity is giving. Okay, a bill, a tab is a whole different thing. But I rest. Okay, because I heard the context.
When you're retiring somebody, sir, that's a bill, right? So I think you're equating retiring somebody, maybe because if you see the whole, listen, I want to retire my significant other, is that prostitution too?
Because there's a bunch of men who say they want to retire their significant other. Okay. As a matter of fact, that's the goal. When they talk about
is that prostitution too?
If you retire a spouse, no. If you retire a girlfriend, somebody that you don't really have the connection with, then I don't know. It's a gray area, isn't it? Could it?
But they're a relationship. The whole movie, what do you mean gray area?
Pretty Woman with Richard Gere and Julia, what's her face? Hey, he retired her. Was she not still a prostitute?
In the beginning, but was she at the end though? If you bring up Pretty Woman, at the end of Pretty Woman, was she still a prostitute? She was not.
No, because
she was not. She was not, sir. She was not.
She was in a relationship. And that's the key word. Relationship.
I know. Okay.
Relationship. You know what?
Speaking of relationship, go ahead. I'm sorry, Esther. You good?
Actually, I just wanted to ask one last point and just say, look, extreme statements like this from influencers shouldn't be used to generalize, because that's what we're finding in our community, that these extreme conversations or extreme viewpoints are being generalized to millions of women. And now this is all women versus recognizing that is that woman. And so let's just normalize not generalizing this to all women. And if we do decide to generalize it, let's put it in perspective and not look at it through our lens. And so I know you wanted to transition, so got it.
No, I mean, listen, I was just going to say, I think it's okay for people to have desires for things. I know there's a lot of transactional things happening, but I feel like everything doesn't have to be seen through that lens. I think there are some relationship dynamics that are still traditional, especially if men being provisional and providing, et cetera, is a part of the equation. So, I mean, I get it. You got words like tricking and all that. I get it. You know what I mean? And for some of y'all who can't, I get it. That's a personal choice. But for some people, it's like we spend money on all kinds of bullshit all the fucking time. And you mean to tell me spending money with or on someone that you enjoy, spending time with and maybe love, et cetera, is a step too far. You know what I'm saying? I get it. I feel y'all. With that being said, though, speaking of a bit too far, right? I mean, I like Melissa Ford when she was on the JBP. I feel like I got a chance to get to know her a little bit. But I feel like ever since her departure from there, I hear her differently. When I saw her on a podcast, and I guess she was talking about decentering men in all aspects of her life, from her friend group to what she's working on, I instantly thought about the JBP. Because even though we don't know what necessarily happened, she was on there and then she wasn't, right? And then the next time we saw her, she was having a conversation with Charlamagne. And I think she was talking about how guys are. And honestly, when I watched her on the show, it sometimes was giving, you don't really like guys for real, right? Like we've had this conversation, but the thing is, some women want marriage, they want the kid. And in the conversation, the clip that we saw, she was talking about how like those two things may not be in the cards for her, and how she's kind of moved on to like this decentering men phase of her life, right? Which led to us talking about how there's a lot of women out there who maybe are also kind of in this decentering men phase of their life, which then also naturally led to the whole rich auntie movement, because I feel like they're cousins a little bit. When you hear rich auntie, it means you're not going to have any kids, most likely, and you're probably not married, right? So, just kind of keeping that through line there. So what are your thoughts, though, in terms of this idea of decentering men? Is it something that women should do, right? Because somehow they've been centering men before. Is this a good idea? Or is this really just an excuse for women who are unable to establish meaningful long-term relationships with men and therefore procreate, and finding a way to rationalize why they're in the spinster years of their lives? So what are your thoughts in regards to this conversation?
I'm going to go with
They're all
3.
talking at once, you guys.
I'm going to go
I
with
know.
3. Yeah, I'm going to go with 3. And I'm going to leave it
Which
right
one was
there.
3? Which one was 3, MJ?
The part where you said, her just not being able to procreate, and just basically just giving up, like, forget it, bump it. I'm not doing it. I don't want to do it. I have no desire. All bets are off. My hands are washed. I'm good. Leave me the fuck alone. Do you as I do me, but without you.
And you think that's a good look for her? You think that's something that,
I
she
mean,
should be a
that's where
model?
she is
Uh-huh.
in her mind. Yes, that's where she is in her mind. That should be perfect for her.
Is she
That's
delusional?
perfect.
Is she delusional, you think?
Ludicrous.
Okay.
That's a better word.
Okay. Okay.
Ludicrous.
Okay.
That's a better word.
And, it's this decentering thing is funny, right? Because it sounds like when a guy tries to holler at a chick in the club and she shoot
Oh,
him
yeah.
down, and then he walk away talking about how I ain't like her no how. You see how she was looking like this, or her breath was stinking, or whatever. And you make these excuses in hindsight for why you weren't able to accomplish what you were trying to accomplish. That's what this sounds like. It sounds like very weak propaganda for the rich auntie recruitment era. I don't know. To me, it's like crying over spilled milk. She's like, oh, we're decentering men. Well, technically, I don't think you really had the relationships as a focus to begin with. And now that you're looking around and you don't have a man to put in the center, you're like, oh, I'm going to decenter them entirely. It's like when you go shopping for something and it's all out in the stores, and now you convince yourself you're going to buy this substitute thing. It's a substitute. And I'm not mad at y'all for getting together, the friend groups. Oh, it's me and my girlfriends. You know what I'm saying? But think about the TV show Girlfriends. Eventually, they wander off and y'all go get mans. So this decentering man thing sounds like just a lot of people just trying to make themselves feel bad because maybe they missed the relationship bus. And it is a bus. And it's a bus you should catch. Because yes, ladies, you will go further. You'll go faster alone, but you'll go further with the partner, economically, emotionally, spiritually, whatever. And now I was talking to my wife, and she was like, well, shoot, yeah, women should decenter men and men should decenter women. And she's like, everybody needs to go back to their own corners and come out again fresh. And I'm like, I don't even know what that looks like. And with the state that things are going, with the high numbers of single people out there was some post about something at a church. There was like 1,000 people there, right? Most of them were women, like
Wow.
overwhelmingly women, right? I guess these are all these other women who are eventually going to be decentering men too. Why? Because there weren't that many men out there for them to pick from. Maybe those dudes were like, they couldn't afford $50,000 a month. I don't know. I digress. My point here is the data from economic research consistently shows that you'll do much better with a partner than without one. So this licking your wounds, this moral victory of decentering men sounds like just what losers say when they've lost the game and want themselves to feel better. It sounds like a moral victory. I'm not feeling it. Freedom feels good, but partnership is what builds legacy. And that's what they really need. Some partnership, if they can find it.
Damn, that was harsh. That was harsh. And I was going to come up like kind of in the middle here, but now I got to go extreme on the other side because I was going to be all in the middle and be like, but so you know what? Let me stick to that part first before I go along the little toxic side of the house. So, first of all, a lot of the women, when they start off with that decentering, it's because they usually assume that they could be career-minded first, career-oriented first, and then the man will come. It was like one day, it was kind of like they just expected the man to fall out of the sky. They didn't really have to put any work in because it was like, oh, I focus on my career. And it's like, if you build it, they will come. Well, that's a lie. They won't come because you're expecting them to come and appear out of nowhere without you putting any work or effort into it. So when you get to that point when they're not there and you actually start looking, it looks a little bit different because now you're older. Now you have different expectations. Now you have different ways that you want people to show up in your life that may not actually be meshing with that particular group of men at the time. So this was going to be my whole common sense approach, but now I gotta be a little toxic because you was so harsh and I didn't like it. And so I'm gonna go ahead and say this. For the women who are decentering now, go ahead because you needed that healing. Sometimes when women talk about decentering, it's because they've experienced so many toxic relationships that at this point they don't give a fuck. Because why should they continue to be in a relationship or in a community of relationships where it did not benefit them? It may have caused emotional abuse, physical abuse, psychological abuse, any type of harm, or it may have just been the fact that they just wasn't measuring up to whatever the situation may have been. And so if they were in toxic relationships, go ahead, girl, decenter men, because you need to heal yourself. And in order to heal yourself, you got to close your eyes to everything else, to include those men, and focus on what you need to do to get yourself in a better space so that when you decide that, maybe this decentering isn't for me, that you go back and you come back into as a healed person. And then I'm also going to say that technically the rich aunties, they get a bad name, right? Because the rich auntie, and unfortunately because I am married, I'm still going to plug marriage, and I will co-sign on Jay Point that married women actually have a higher net worth than single women. But we're going to pretend this for now, though. The rich auntie culture celebrates independence, right? And that's what they're saying. They're like, hey, we're proud, we're loud, we're out there, we're traveling, we have this autonomy. We don't need a partner to feel fulfilled. And to be honest, when the women get older, and when I say older, I'm talking about significantly older, they still have a community that they come back to, whether they had women, whether they had men in their lives or not. And you talked about living single or girlfriends, but you know what you forgot? Golden Girls. Golden Girls, a icon classic. They all had men, and then at that point in their life, they wanted to decenter men because they were tired of dealing with the bullshit and felt that they'll be better off without having to pay attention to some of this childish ass behavior that some men continue to demonstrate no matter how old they are. And so, yes, woman, look out for you. If that's what you want to do in your life, Melissa Forte, at this point in her life, that's what she's doing. I'm not quite sure if that's why she's doing it, because she had a toxic relationship. But either way it go, heal yourself, girl. Heal yourself, and then figure out when it's time to get back in the race.
Not the girl who barely watched TV growing up, trying to use TV references and doing so incorrectly. Because if I remember the Golden Girls correctly, they were dating. They were outside. Rose, I think, Blanche for sure, they were still outside. So the fact that they were living together was more economical, if I remember correctly, just made sense. They even bought Shorty's mom to be a part of the crew, right? So what are you talking about?
I'm going to tell you what I'm talking about.
I appreciate what you're trying to do, but you caught somebody who actually watched TV like that. So I used to love the Golden Girls. And so it was a great show, by the way. And Blanche could have got it. But listen, this is a thing.
Blanche was the main one outside.
Blanche could have got it.
She was the hoe. She was the old hoe.
If you pose a group of like niggas quietly and secretly about Blanche being able to get it, Blanche could have probably got it, okay? I'm just keeping it real. Now, I'm just keeping it a buck. I think it was like her vibe, right? But anyways, let's talk about Melissa Ford. I think you guys covered a lot of it, so I'm going to try to let y'all do that. Because I hate hearing people give up. You know what I'm saying? Like, not only that, but I also hate people misdiagnosing things. I think maybe it's because of the journey that I'm currently in terms of looking inward and trying to find what's real. We tell ourselves a bunch of lies to make ourselves feel better, to not address whatever may be ailing us, right? We don't have the outcome. I get she's resigned. But when I hear her talk, she sounds like she got it figured out. You know what I'm saying? Kind of like the whole Kiki story from a couple of weeks ago, right? Where she's like, I'm never going to live with a guy again, right? I hear you, sis, but, right? Maybe you're not as healed yet. You're just kind of speaking early. That's what I hear from Melissa Ford, right? And it breaks my heart because for all intents and purposes, looking at her, there's no reason why she can't find love. It was funny because in the clip, she said, like, maybe the ship has sailed for me in the whole kid department. I'm like, well, how old is she? I think that ship might have sailed. But the thing was, like, the hope that she still had in that sentence told me she still wants those things, right? So now we're having this conversation because maybe now her character is to be this woman who represents women who are decentering men. Says, get out of your own way, right? You've been decentering men. That's why you ain't got one right now. So you're not doing anything new by saying this. What's troubling is that you don't recognize that's what you've been doing this entire time. That maybe if you've done something differently, you can get the outcome that you desire, right? She is still beautiful, vibrant enough. Yo, you need more help. You need more counseling. A lot of y'all do. Y'all fool yourselves into these concepts that even if somebody told you this rich auntie thing is a farce. Most of y'all over 60, not married, may have 11K. Right? Maybe, right? In a life insurance policy. Who you gonna leave it to? Right? Those soon to be rich nieces and nephews, right? So what I'm saying is it's like we're talking ourselves to destruction low key. We are rationalizing irrational behavior. We're trying to find reasons and sounding so smart and so healed to run towards a thing. She still wants a man. Many of y'all women out here talking this rich auntie talk want a man. Right? MJ mentioned it. Number 3, she's given up. Many of y'all have given up. Why? Because looking at yourself is too hard. Facing your issues is so hard. Y'all would rather give up on the chance of finding a partner for the rest of your life that you can build with, that you can grow old with, that you can hold hands with. Why? Because it's too hard to look at yourself. Last week, I talked about people don't want to go to the gym to get fit. And we wonder why we're getting fat as a country. Right? But people don't even want to go mentally to the gym to get fit. We finna like talk ourselves into oblivion, right? If you start looking at all the data, all the math, right? All these conversations about reasons why we can't couple as a couple. What the fuck? Y'all are buying into this bullshit. You know who's not buying into this bullshit? People who want to live, who want to have a legacy, who want to build wealth. The fuck are y'all talking about, man? So I get it. She got to say that to make herself feel better. But Melissa Ford, is not too late for you. You are getting in your way. And many of y'all are. You know why? Because you had a lot of success. You had a lot of people after y'all, a lot of energy, and you became delusional about what was real to you. And you couldn't calibrate real people who wanted you for who you really were. So get back to that. And if that means to S&M's point, decenter for now, cool. But man, come back. You know what I'm saying? You don't really want to be that cat lady. You know, many of y'all don't. That rich auntie shit is giving y'all too many excuses to not do the work necessary to improve the life that you know you want. You want that. This is not Nick saying that. Too many of y'all want that thing. You know what I'm saying? And you could hear it even when she's talking about decentering it, as if that baby train hasn't already left the station. Come on, sis. Right? And you talking about somebody who's been through IVF. Okay? That train has choo-choo. You know what I mean? But the fact that you still want it tells me that there's still hope for you yet. So, Melissa, if you're watching out there, call me, sis. Do a couple of sessions. I will get you right. I promise.
Thank you for that lovely plug there,
Thank you.
Melissa.
I'm here to do the Lord's work.
Love
I
it.
don't know who she needs. I'm the nigga she need to center so she can get back to properly centering niggas. You know?
Adding to the harem, I see. I got it. You know what? Who is doing some relationship work? That would be Demi Lovato and Keke Palmer. They recently revealed that when they were 15 years old, 15 years old, they dated men in their 20s and 30s. And not only that, they only later understood the power dynamics that was involved in that relationship. So 15, 20, and 30. So the conversation
Wow.
actually raised questions about agency, maturity, and adult responsibility, especially when you're looking back at past relationships through modern cultural standards. So here's my question to you guys. Can a 15-year-old meaningfully consent to dating someone in their 20s or 30s, or is that inherently exploitation?
I think at the age of 15, everybody's wrong. You know what I mean? Like 15 is just, I did a little bit of research. I'm no Delvin, but in my research, most of the states the lowest age of consent was 16. So let's just fast forward to a year later when these ladies, because at 15, it was all wrong. I'm just going to say that hands down. I don't even really want to talk about it. To me, it's like watching the R. Kelly tape. You can't tell nobody you saw it. You just got to be like, yeah, whatever. You know what I mean? So let's just move on from the 15-year-old conversation. Let's say it's a 16-year-old and a 25-year-old or a 30-year-old, right? I think it's still wrong, but it's probably more legal. And it's wrong because maturity gaps create power gaps. It's funny when we're always talking, about sexual harassment in the workplace and what's appropriate, what's not appropriate. And we always talk about these power imbalances, right? And how exploitative they are, right? This is the same thing to me. It feels very similar because the power imbalance between adults and teenagers is far greater than most people are really willing to look at when they're talking about this particular dating dynamic. Because research in developmental psychology says that the brain really isn't fully developed till 25. Shoot, some people are saying for men, it's 60 now, right? So from a person who is 15 cannot compete mentally, socially, emotionally with someone who is 25. You are out of your weight class. You are outmatched, outgunned, out of everything, and out of luck. So even if a teenager feels confident in their choices, because I know when I was a teenager, I thought I had it all figured out. I was wrong, right? Because they're still operating with far less experience and emotional maturity, right? Their reasoning ability is just less because they've seen a lot less. So that's why the gap between adults and teenagers can create this deep chasm and divide of power between the two. This imbalance that you doesn't get over just from a few conversations or because this teenager happens to be a multimillionaire or on TV shows or whatever around the world. Their ability to process emotions in social situations is hampered. It puts them at a handicap. It's like challenging somebody with no hands to a clapping contest. It's just not fair. Go ahead.
So you're saying they have no agency whatsoever, Jay? Because that analogy means like they just ain't bringing absolutely nothing at all to the table, right? Just based off what you're saying.
Comparatively, they have no agency. Comparatively, it's like, go ahead, yeah. Because relationships are, as you've said, I think before, are a lot about leverage. And the leverage that they can bring to bear in these relationships it's scant compared to what this older person is able to do in terms of their experience and emotions and manipulations and situations. I just feel like it's a different weight class. I don't think it's competitive.
Okay, I'm gonna let MJ go because I want to push back on some of this. But go ahead, MJ.
Oh, this is definitely challenging for me because I feel like, again, what are you doing at that age? You're laying there, you're just a body. It's like follow the leader, the older person, basically. And it kind of remind me of R. Kelly. I want to give it to you, Just Jay. I do. I want to give you that. It does. It reminds me of an R. Kelly situation. And maybe it was a come up for some of them at that tender age. You never know people's circumstances. And the men probably were pimps. And they want a control thing and they want a young tenderoni. Virgins. Something fresh. I mean, the list could go on and on and on and on. I'm just putting it in terms of my perspective and especially how I was raised too.
So super quick question before you jump in, Nick. Why do you think that these relationships were so normalized for so long, though, in entertainment and music industry? Because you both brought up R. Kelly, so I'm just curious
I feel
as
like
to
it was
why you
just
think it was
like
normalized.
a self of control and money is involved as well because you never know where these girls or guys, what type of lifestyle or how they were brought up. And a lot of times the parents really sell them down the river because they want the money. They do. They want the money. They do. And they don't
Okay,
care if somebody take advantage of their daughter or son.
okay. So fuck the disclaimers and caveats. I don't give a fuck, right? Because we're talking about Demi Lovato and Keke Palmer, for example, right?
Okay.
Keke Palmer and Demi Lovato were the celebrities, if I'm not mistaken, or no, right? I feel like to run to the R. Kelly thing is a little lazy in a certain way because I don't think that's applicable here. These young ladies were not speaking like young ladies who had been, or at least I didn't get the impression they were speaking as young ladies who had been essayed. I didn't get that in their recounting. Did y'all get that from their recounting of this? Or were they having a general conversation about how looking back on what occurred, they can realize the complexities of how it was wrong? But did y'all get the impression they were coming across as victims of an R. Kelly-like situation? I'm just asking for clarity.
No.
I'm saying based on the age
don't-
difference, I thought there was some statutory situation there.
Okay, gotcha. And S&M, I'm missing something?
Yeah, so I was trying to say that's basically the lens they're looking back from,
So it's
stating
not an
that
essay
it
situation,
was
right?
that they fully participated in the situation, and however,
Which is why it was positioned in terms of whether or not people should have agency. But how do we automatically beeline? I get it, right? Because, okay, kids are involved 1,000%. So, of course, we would say that we don't, all the shit is wrong and all that other fucking shit too, right? But for me, I feel like just what Jay did, right? Because I would be willing to bet if you asked them if they felt like they were victimized or if they felt like they had agency, like to be comfortable enough to have that conversation, to me, the way that they did not speak to people who saw them as someone who were taken advantage of or necessarily maybe as a victim of that thing. I think it just would look differently both in the conversation and maybe not be had at all to a certain extent, right? So, okay, cool. If assuming that that's how they're looking at that, then this brings on a different conversation, right? Like for them to look back on it, what did they learn? What changed in the culture, right? We all grew up at a time when some girls who were like the hot girls or the high school cheerleader, whoever, were dating older guys. That was something that was commonplace growing up back in the day. Maybe it's not so much now. So the fact that might have been a situation where that was one of them, okay, we're pointing the lens. But is that still happening today? I probably would venture to say that is, right? So it's like we have these conversations and outrages and stuff, and I get that, but I feel like there's a little bit more here because it is about agency. Like for that person who had that experience, and I think it's okay for them to feel how they felt, because again, if they were like celebrities, they could have been a lot more mature than your average 13 or 14-year-old. Again, I'm not making any excuses for the men who got involved, right? Because I think, yes, statutory, they should all go to jail. But somebody said two things can be true, right? Is it possible that, yes, those guys are scumbags to go to jail, but that person still felt like they were in that position and they had agency to be in that position? And the reason why that resonates with me is because I was 16 and I had a dalliance with a woman that was 30-something. Right. And it wasn't one of those things where I was like outside and she walked up with a little lollipop and all that. No, I specifically, right, went to the penny saver. I called the number. I left. I had intent. You know what I mean? I heard her little voice on that thing and I was like, hey, shorty, what's happening? You know what I'm saying? Now, again, she was 1,000% wrong. Right. But even me looking back on it, I remember I was on Clubhouse and maybe I told the story. And all these people wanted me to feel a certain type of way about what occurred just based off of dynamics. I get it. But for that person who's thoughtful, many years later, it's like, no, y'all can want me to feel some type of way about this. Sorry. You know what I'm saying? That's not what happened. And I had agency. Like low key, you could have like evidence of what I did to make that happen. You know what I'm saying? And so like, we don't want to pretend like young people have agency and they move in that way. Again, this doesn't excuse anything that anybody's doing on the other side. But like, there are certain things that 15, 16-year-olds can do, right? Like in terms of expressing their agency. So you out there shooting guns and shit. Like all I'm saying is that I just think that, yes, it is wrong for the age gap and the dating and stuff like that. It maybe doesn't really relate to us because we're old as shit. But I do think to relate it to me is like, I know that at some point my kid's going to get old enough or whatever, and I have to respect the fact of his agency, right? Because even when we have conversations about what kids are allowed to do at an early age, take sex off the table, there are things that people are advocating for that we question whether or not a kid has agency for, right? And I just kind of feel like sexuality, though, is one of those funny things that we're born with it. like, it's just really hard, I think, to police that because it's a natural thing for people to explore, to learn about themselves or whatever. So it's very difficult for us as adults to look at it from kid brains as if we weren't kids once upon a time ourselves. So I get what they're saying. I went through a similar experience. I get that she was wrong, but I'll be damned if somebody's going to tell me that just because I wasn't 25, my frontal lobe cortex wasn't formatted enough for me to not know what I was doing. No, nigga, I knew what I was doing. And when she did what she did, I was happy that she did it. And that was it. You know what I'm saying? Front cortical lobe be damned. You know what I'm saying?
So I understand what you're saying, and it still was a crime unless the age of consent was 16 in your state, right? Since the age of
Right.
16 seems to be the common consent age, except for in some states like California where it's 18. However, with that being said, I would say from speaking specifically from Demi and Kiki perspective, experiences, of course, could be interpreted differently once they mature, right? And that's what I interpret as that they had this experience, and looking back in hindsight, they said, oh, wow, this actually could have been considered basically a predatory action, may have been inappropriate. And that's because they're looking back from that. I also want to note, though, that cultural norms change significantly over time. And as such, society adapts to those cultural norms, which is why even today we're still having this conversation about whether or not it's a crime, but it's a crime. Let's make that clear. I want everyone to understand my stance that it is a crime. I don't care if you wanted it, if you initiated it is a crime, unless your age of consent state was 16 in your case. But in their case, 15 is not an age of consent in any state. And so I don't actually think that teenagers can consent to adult power dynamics, right? At the age of 15, the age gap, especially with Demi, who dated a 30-year-old, that maturity and authority imbalance is off the chart. I think it's completely difficult to make an informed decision, regardless if they were already placed in this position because they were celebrities, because we automatically assume that because they're celebrities, that gives them some sense of, oh, they must have been more mature. But we're also finding out that these teenagers was being molested. We're finding out there was other things that was occurring behind the scenes that may have led them to believe that they were adult enough to be in these type of situations. I think that for a lot of times that we normalize these type of problematic relationships because it's easier for us to do that versus hold people responsible for the crime that they committed. And that's why you have all these teachers now that sleep with their charges. I'm going to call them their charges, but they're students. And that's why, and now they're, especially the female teachers, right, where they're just not being held accountable and finally getting the same
Yeah.
type of sentencing that the men have always gotten when it came to that particular case. At the end of the day, I'm still going to land with it's a crime. And adults are basically expected to exercise judgment and boundaries that minors cannot. Legally and ethically, adults are responsible because the responsibility should rest with that adult. So yes, they took advantage of you. Yes, they were taken advantage of. And while they may have thought about it and in hindsight said, oh, wow, I may have not been the most mature person to make that decision, it's still a crime. Unfortunately for them, the statute of limits have already run out. And as Nick pointed out, they did not come from a place of saying that they were SA. And so therefore, the state of Hollywood will most likely not press charges on their behalf. Plus the limitations is 5 years. So
I mean, listen, if we were just gonna, I mean, honestly, next time, because it's not, if we all can agree that it's wrong, adult part, right? If that was the conversation, we could have just skipped this all entirely, right? These two young women were recounting, because we all agree. I don't want to make it seem like anybody's here is advocating for, right? So we keep on saying that's the only point we keep landing at. It's almost like, what's the point of the conversation? Right. But when these two young ladies were talking, though, right, in the environment, yes, people would run to, they were essayed. But the thing that struck for me was that wasn't the way that they were positioning the conversation. These were two young women who, from Hollywood or whatever, they were talking about how they learned and how they grew. And the thing is, and the reason why this also resonates too, is because sometimes people will look back 10, 15 years and they would change what happened. Right. I was just watching the Tyra Banks documentary. There's a young lady that was on there talking about how she got essayed in 2026. She was talking about this. And then they went and, like the internet does, they uncovered a bunch of video content that contradicted her position in 2026. Right. And I ain't gonna lie, like low key, I believed her when I was watching the documentary. Like, oh, damn, it's crazy. How they gonna tape an essay on the show? Right. And then he found the clip where she was talking about recounting the evening, et cetera. So I just think the other part for me that was interesting here that I think low key, it sounded like they maybe remembered it as accurately as maybe they remembered back then, but as they got wiser, they were looking back and recognized some things. I think that's great. But also what happens though sometimes is that people remember things, and because things have changed in 2026, now what happened 20 years ago became something else, right? Because naturally speaking, people's memories are not the greatest, right? That's one reason why witness testimony isn't always the greatest, because people's recall ability to remember details, et cetera, may not always be the greatest. So you're asking somebody to go back 10, 15 years and recount a thing. Right. And so, and then on top of that, other people who have not had that experience, who have a worldview, and I get it, it's respectable, it's the law, all that, automatically assume things and say things. That's why I believe when people say two things can be true at the same time, we say it, but do we really mean it? Right? Because yes, that person, what they did was wrong, but also that person can still have agency. Right? When that young person decided to have sex with a person their own age, they were exhibiting agency. I do get it's different when you have an older person because you talk about power dynamics, but I'm talking about from that person's perspective who wants to do a thing, who is actively engaging. I'm telling you, that person's going to feel like they had agency. And that's why I say two things can be true at the same time.
I think, though, at the end of the clip, they did look at each other and go, they looked back and said, we were exploited. So I felt like that was the lens that they were looking at it through. Like, yeah, at the time we thought we were, it made sense, but now we look at it, I've reached this age, of the people I was talking to, I know where my mind is now, and I'm like, yeah, I was exploited. I thought that was their takeaway from the conversation.
Well, if that's it, then that's exactly what I'm kind of low-key concerned about to a certain extent. I think they still couched it, right? Because they were not trying to, it wasn't like it wasn't an R. Kelly situation. That's why when we go there, I was like, okay, that's not the way that it came across, right? Yes, you can say I look back and recognize what was happening, yada, yada, yada. I don't think they were necessarily giving up their agency to the choices that they made. Because I think that's where, whether it's essay or other type of things, people feel like they didn't have a choice. There was no agency in those situations, right? When somebody's taking advantage of you to a point, right? Or somebody, forcibly, right? So I think the agency thing is an important thing to the person that's going through that experience, right? And it's easy for other people to try to assign agency when you weren't the one going through it.
So I just want to add this. Like I said previously, that because they're looking back in hindsight, they may have believed they did have agency because they did actively participate in the choice at that time. Right. And so I'm not saying that they didn't have some form of agency, but I'm saying that the agency that they thought they may have had was predicated on the situation or the times where this was normal, this was acceptable. And so therefore, they didn't view it as too big of a deal because it was normalized. And that's another reason why I asked the question in regards to Hollywood and entertainment, even though we realize that this actually happens in the real world too, where we have teenagers dating grown-ass men in college. And I don't mean the 19-year-old, the 20-year-old, but the 24-year-old, 25-year-old grad student and whatnot, because it's still, to this day, is actually normalized as part of our culture. And so regardless of the laws that are in place and regardless of whatever incentives that they may have had at that time when they made that decision. So they are making the decision. The question or what raised it for me was basically the maturity level of making that decision. But yes, indeed, they did make the decision. I just believe that there may have been other factors that played in the role that made them to believe that this was a conscientious decision that they were making solely based on their own personal agency.
And that's okay. I'm gonna land here because, again, I guess because it just really cuts closer for me as the person. When I hear you talk, it's like trying to tell me I didn't have agency, right? So I get that you're talking about them. I guess maybe it's a little too close for me. But when I hear you talk, I'm like, you didn't know me back then. That's number one. You know what I'm saying? We can move on. But that's why it kind of resonates with me because, yeah, I think young people and me, I had a lot more agency than even my parents understood at the time. So I hear you. We just go ahead and leave it there. Excuse me?
And you were actually at the age of consent in most of the states being
Even
that
if
16.
I wasn't, I'm sorry. I know it's hard for y'all to hold two thoughts in your mind at the same time.
I disagree
right?
with that because
It
I was the
could
one who said
be
truth is
illegal.
true
She
at the
was
same
wrong.
time.
And I could still have agency and make that choice willingly and thoughtfully and look back on it. And it was what it was. I'm not everybody. I get it. I can't expect Nick out of everybody else. But there is a potential that people can still have agency. And it's not a matter of just whatever. So anyways, with that being said, it's about time for us to go ahead and wrap this all up. Woo! It's been an episode. I don't even know why we ended with that one. In retrospect, it was like, ooh, right? Especially, anyways. We had MJ. MJ, what are your thoughts? We got to start with you, boo. You tapped in with us. I know it was a lot, girl. Hopefully you was buckled up. I did tell you to buckle up. What are your thoughts? How did you enjoy being on the show? Where can people find you? Any
I
last words? All that good stuff, girl.
First of all, you guys are lovely. Nick, you're something else. You're a piece of work. You're a riot. I enjoyed it. Thank you for having me. Listen, it was very informative for myself as well, because some of the things I did not know, because oftentimes I find myself out of the loop for whatever reason, but I can definitely dig it. And you can find me, Dear Sis Podcast, Dear Sis on IG, Spotify, Apple, everywhere. Just put Dear Sis, I'll pop up. I look like a little cartoon character. And yeah, it's your girl, MJ from the Dear Sis Podcast.
Yes, thank you,
Yeah,
MJ.
definitely.
We might as well keep it with the SJ. You know what I mean? Following right up with S&M Jones.
Yo, I like to think of it as ladies first. Ladies
Ladies
first.
first.
So, anyways,
Ooh.
I just want to say thank you, MJ, for coming on the show. I also want to point out
Thank
that something
you.
that she didn't point out is that she has her own makeup line. And yes, I have a product as well. And so I love
Yes.
that. Woo, 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 woo.
Yes.
So shout out to you, ma'am.
One more thing
Go
I
ahead.
wanted to say. I definitely want to add that into. Yes, I have my own makeup line, mannequinbeautybox.com, as well as I have a new movie coming out. I am an executive producer to a new movie. The name of the movie is called Nocturnal, and I'm super excited about it. If you guys are into vampires, be on the look for that.
Yes.
Yes,
Dope.
Okay.
thank you.
That's dope.
Okay. So,
Yes,
Yes,
thank you.
yes.
so
I
black
love
Super
women
this.
are the only
And
excited.
this is
bloodsuckers. But go
why.
ahead. I'm sorry.
I was like, you were underselling yourself, ma'am. Like, come on, ma'am. And so
Yeah.
what everything being said, I just want to say that to me, the main thread to this entire episode is perception and how people present themselves and what expectations come with that, whether you're at the age of consent or not, whether you're a politician or not, whether you're in a 50-50 relationship or not. It's basically the expectations and how you show up within those expectations should be the main determining factor as you go forward and look at relationships. As we talk about the one thing I just really want to point out with Melissa Ford, please, woman, heal yourself. And regardless, and for those who are also decentering men, I'm okay with that. But once again, once you get healed, don't hold that to against everyone else, right? Just take that moment to heal yourself and then come back to the fold. Come back. We welcome you.
All right,
Yes, come back.
Jay.
Yeah, so the through line for me was the line between narratives and actual like patterns and facts and statistics, right? Most viral debates are based on narratives. Somebody says this, somebody says that. But the outcomes, what really happens in life is driven by the patterns, the statistics, the demographics, the behavioral trends. That's what really says what's happening over time, not just these one-offs of $50,000 a month or whatever, whatever. So if we want better conversations about relationships, society, we got to ground our opinions in reality. Y'all on these tweets or whatever y'all doing, man. Y'all people, we all over the place. Just remember, don't be led astray. All right, stories do trend. They be hot. They be viral. They pop up on your feed. But think about the patterns. Think about how this plays out over time. And before I go, don't forget, get you a Goodwood. Use BLC Pod code. Get you a special discount.
Yes, get the good ones. Hey, pause if necessary. Listen, I probably said this before, and I'm gonna try to say it again. Like, life can be as simple as a simple equation. Your ego versus your agenda. Oftentimes, it really is that simple. Sometimes, like, they both can't be number one sometimes. You have to decide which one is more important. There are gonna be life moments where you have to decide if your agenda is more important than your ego. It's funny, men get a rap for having big egos, but I'm starting to really realize that it may not just be men with their egos, right? But put the ego aside. Like, if you want something, you can have something. But if I told you all it took was your ego, right? Not the id part of it, right? But the ego that expresses or sees themselves a certain type of way. Some of y'all need to be people that you aren't, and you're getting in your own way, being that person to meeting your agenda. Does that make sense? Hopefully it makes sense for some of y'all out there. This is a solutions-oriented podcast, and I really want women to be happy. It's funny because I might talk a certain type of way, and y'all think I'm like hating, but in truth, I want y'all to find love. Y'all say y'all want love, y'all want somebody, y'all want to have kids. I want that for y'all. Just like when Stephen A. maybe wanted the theme for Jasmine, it comes off a certain type of way because any type of criticism comes across a certain type of way. But in truth, I really want y'all to be happy. But sometimes I truly believe that your ego is getting in the way of your agenda, right? So cool. If you're okay with that, I got to be okay with that. But I'm sad for you because you still want that thing. So hopefully people recognize, man, it's as simple as that. Sometimes you got to get out of your own way because y'all are standing in your own way of the thing that you say that you want, believe it or not. With that being said, on behalf of myself, Just J, MJ, and S&M Jones, also known as SJ, and Delvin the expert, who was not able to join us today, but Delvin, we still thinking about you, my guy. For all the people out there who bought merch or who will buy merch, pew, 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 don't forget the merch. And lastly, to all the people who've liked, subscribed, follow, and all that good stuff, you guys are appreciated. We'll be back next week. Until then, be easy! Pew, 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 pew.